Hello guys, and welcome to another Hellfire Citadel Mythic Guide by Method. I'm Roger Brown, and with me I have Just Wait.
Hello everyone.
So today we're going to be talking about Socrethar the Eternal, and you're going to find out that he is not so eternal. It's actually a pretty easy fight. At least compared to Gorfint, which you've just killed, this should be a piece of cake.
Yeah, the difference between Mythic and Heroic in this fight is basically nothing. There's two abilities different in phase 1, and phase 2 is actually easier than Heroic. The setup you want to use is 2 tanks, 4 healers and 14 DPS, and you need to have 1 DPS that can taunt the boss to soak one of the reverberating blows. This brings us to the first ability. This is the reverberating blow. In Heroic you have groups soaking behind the tanks, but in Mythic we don't do this. We just have the 2 tanks soak each blow all alone by themselves and have no one behind them, and once they both have the stacks, we have the third player that can taunt take one of the blows by himself as well. Now for this third player to survive the blow, he's going to need to use a personal cooldown and taunt during the cast, not before, or he might get melee hit. And after the cast is finished, the tanks need to take the boss back from him again.
Now, in terms of positioning, the whole ranged plus healers can just be stacked up away from the boss, and this will help with handling the abilities way easier and more controlled. Now, about the abilities, you have the Fell Prison, first of all, which is going to spawn on a random player, and once it has spawned, just move away from it. You have 2 seconds or so, pretty easy to see and move out of. If you're too slow, you're going to get trapped, and the DPSers need to kill the crystal to free the person, but yeah, just don't get hit. That's pretty embarrassing. Then you have the Volatile Fell Orb, which targets a random ranged player. All he needs to do is move out of the group, explode by himself, because the sphere is going to fixate on him, and once it reaches him, it explodes, so you need to be by yourself. And then once that happens, he just joins back into the ranged camp. And then lastly, you have the Fellblaze Charge. The construct is just gonna target a random player, can be melee or ranged, and he's just gonna charge towards his direction and then charge back to his original position and just leave a trail of green stuff on the ground which damages you and slows you a lot. All you need to do is, if you are a ranged player, again just move a bit on the side of the ranged camp, spawn the charge there, and then move back into the ranged camp. And if you're a melee, pretty much the same thing, just make sure that it goes towards a direction to not hit the whole ranged camp.
Now the last ability that's exactly the same as in Heroic is the Overwhelming Power. This is just going to be a random debuff applied to raid members in the raid, and it's going to be dealing damage, so you just hit it up. Now this brings us to the first new Mythic ability, which is the Apocalyptic Fell Burst. Once it's going to drop a giant fell bomb on top of a ranged player's location, and once it lands, it's going to kill anyone who's standing near that position, and a big burst of raid damage towards the rest of the people. This damage doesn't get reduced with the distance you are from the initial location, so you just take a couple of steps outside of the visual zone that you can see, and then you're safe and you don't need to move more.
And the last thing in phase 1 that you have to deal with is the new ad in Mythic, which is called the Voracious Soulstalker. Now this ad is going to spawn on the location of a random player in the raid, and once it spawns, it casts an ability called Eternal Hunger. The ability is a fixate to the closest player, and it will chase him and also do a cone in front of him that just kills anyone who is standing near it. So it's a small cone, but if anyone steps in it, it's just dead. Now the best way to handle with this is to have a hunter be the closest target, and then as soon as the ad casts this Eternal Hunger, it's like a 2 or 3 second cast, the hunter just disengages away from it and makes sure that it doesn't pass through any of the raid members. Now the second ability is the Blooded Tracker, which just increases the speed of this ad the longer it stays alive. Nothing too drastic though, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Now once this ad hits 50%, it's going to start casting his last ability, which is Soul Regeneration. And if it gets this cast off, it heals back to 100%. So it's very crucial that this doesn't happen. The way you can prevent this is by stunning the ad or knockbacking it, or basically anything in this game that moves the target or stuns it, except actually kicking it. You cannot kick this ability. So once it hits 50%, every single DPSer needs to switch to this ad and kill it as fast as possible while chain stunning it so that it doesn't get this cast off. Pretty easy if you actually do it. Not really complicated, just make sure that you don't fail this, because then it actually delays a lot your phase 1 and makes things a lot messier.
And once the boss reaches 0% health, just like in Heroic and all the other difficulties, you'll go into phase 2. But it's important this time to note when the Voracious Soulstalker is going to spawn, as you do not want one of them spawning as you're about to transition. And once you've entered phase 2, congratulations, you just killed the boss.
Yep, thanks for watching guys, and that's it. Nah, I'm just kidding. Alright, so phase 2 starts, pretty easy phase, actually probably easier than Heroic. Once the boss is up, you just start DPSing it. There are going to be 3 portals spawning around the room. What you want to do as soon as you go into this phase, you want everyone to go and stack right next to the red portal, because that's where the Dominator is going to come out from. And it's really important that you kill the Dominator as fast as possible, because he puts a shield on the boss that makes him immune to damage and also immune to kicks. And that's the most important thing about phase 2.
Yeah, the interrupting of the boss himself, Socrethar, is the most important part of phase 2, because if you fail on the interrupts, you go back into phase 1 and you actually might not kill the boss. First cast is Excerpt Dominance, and you need 3 people in a rotation to actually kick this. If a cast goes through, it'll reduce the construct's health by 15% of its maximum health. If the boss gets 7 of these cast off, you're going back to phase 1. The second and last cast Socrethar himself does is Apocalypse. This is a channeling cast for 10 seconds and it's going to be dealing damage every 2 seconds. You cannot interrupt this, so you're just going to have to out-heal it.
Now moving on to the ads in phase 2. As we mentioned, there are 3 different portals with different colors spawning ads in this phase, each one spawning a different kind of ad. We already mentioned the red one spawning the Dominators, and it's only going to be 1 at a time. What they do is the Foul Barrier, which is just a shield on Socrethar, making him immune to damage and interrupts. But they also do another ability. It's a debuff called Gift of the Manari. They will also only cast it once, and it's going to target 4 random ranged players. The bad thing about it is that it lasts for 2 whole minutes, so it lasts a lot of time. And what it does is every 1.5 seconds, these 4 players explode around them for almost 100k damage. What it means is they just need to move out of the raid, because as we said, everyone is stacked up on the red portal. So they just move outside and just wait the 2 minutes. That's it. Moving on to the purple portal, this one spawns the Shadow Callers, which are just the caster ads. Now what they do is, first off, they do a debuff called Shadow Word Agony, which is just a stacking dot they do to random players. It can be dispelled and interrupted, so it's not a big deal. The second ability that they have is a Shadow Bolt Volley. It's exactly what it says, it's just Shadow Bolts to the whole raid. Again, it is interruptible though, so it's not a big deal. And the damage that it does is not that high, it's like 50k damage, so just make sure that you interrupt it and you're gonna be good to go. And then lastly, the blue portal spawns the most annoying ad called Haunting Souls. Now what they do is just fixate on a random player and they just move towards him. You just need to kill them before they reach that player, because if they reach that player, they explode on him doing an AoE fear to everyone around him, and that fear lasts for 8 seconds and it also deals 80k damage per second. So it's very, very bad if that happens, but it's pretty easy to prevent this from happening.
Yet to assist killing the Haunting Souls and slowing them, one of the raid members, advisably a tank because 2 tanks are not needed in this phase, is going to be taking the Soulbound construct and assist the raid with its abilities. First ability they can use is the Reverberating Blow. Just like in phase 1, the boss does it towards us, now we can use it on them. This is a hard hitting smash that applies a debuff that will increase the damage from further smashes, so you just keep using this on cooldown on the boss. The second ability is Fell Prison. We didn't use it in our kill, but you can always use it to trap any ghosts after the portals have changed. The third ability is Volatile Fel Orb. Just like in phase 1, this follows a player around and then blows up, but you can send it to enemies this time. To assist in the AoE DPS, you should send this towards the Haunted Souls. Fourth ability is the Fell Blaze Charge. This will leave behind, just like in phase 1, the fire on the ground that slows and deals damage. So you want to place this in a way that it helps the raid with slowing and killing the Haunted Souls. The way you do this is you start at the red portal and then you look towards the blue portal, and between these 2 portals you're going to place these fire lines. It's important to note that once you charge near ghosts, they're going to blow up on top of the construct and you're actually going to lose health. So you need to make sure that you do not charge into the ghosts. Now there's one fifth and new ability in Mythic compared to Heroic and Normal. This is the Apocalyptic Felburst that he uses in phase 1. You may use it if you want to on, for example, the ghosts. But keep in mind that once it lands, it actually deals damage towards the whole raid. So you're actually doing friendly damage instead of just damaging the enemies.
That's basically the whole fight. Now, just a couple of tips. In phase 1, the new ad that you get in Mythic, the Voracious Soulstalker, you can also slow it. So if you want to position it properly near the raid so the melees don't have to run too far to reach it, you can just have a constant slow on it. Will make it easier with kiting. Now, if you have a hunter kiting it like we did, Parents also works in order to not die from the eternal hunger. So that also makes it easier to turn it around if you're in a tight corner. It's really not hard if you get the hang of it. Now, in phase 2, the only thing that can kind of mess up your positioning is the Gift of the Manari, because as we mentioned, the players who get it have to move outside of the raid to not blow them up, but they can still get fixated by the ghosts. And if that happens, you need to make sure that you are indeed in a line that the ghosts are going to pass through the Fellblaze charge and get slowed and AoE down. Very important, because if you have ghosts running out of the Fellblaze charges and they are just by themselves, it will create a little bit of panic. You're gonna have to stun them and knock them back and single target them, which is not effective for DPS.
The last tip for the fight is that if you want to kill the boss in one phase 2, so you don't have to go back to phase 1 and then back to phase 2 again, and it just makes the fight more complicated, is to just kill the second Dominator while the boss is casting Apocalypse, so he doesn't cast any Excerpt Dominances. Even if the construct is at 30% health or lower, you don't have to worry about any Excerpt Dominances cast going off as the boss is casting Apocalypse. Now there's a couple of debuffs you want to keep track of in this fight. For phase 1, there's a debuff for the tanks, which is Reverberating Blow. Both tanks want to keep track of this, and also the third person that's taking the third smash wants to keep an eye on his debuff, so you don't stand in front of the boss when he's casting it while you have debuff. Second debuff is for all ranged players. This is the Volatile Fel Orb. This is the fixate from the orb, and then you move out of the raid if you get targeted.
And in phase 2, you have the two debuffs. First one is Ghastly Fixation, which is the fixate from the ghosts. You have to react to it pretty fast. If you're standing outside of the Fellblaze charge, you need to make sure that you go back in it, or well, that the ghost is walking through the Fellblaze charge. And then the second one is Gift of the Manari. Again, you have to react really fast, because if you get it and you're standing in the middle of the whole raid, start exploding there, you might actually wipe the whole raid if you don't move out of it fast enough.
Now that's everything for the Socrethar fight on Mythic. As you can see, phase 2 is a lot easier because you only get 2 Dominators, hopefully, and it doesn't spawn as often as it does in Heroic.
Remember to drop us a like and leave us a comment if you have any suggestions of how to improve these guides, and also subscribe if you want to see more Hellfire Citadel Mythic guides.
Good luck getting your free loot, and see you in the next guide.
Good luck with those bows, boys.